Today I'm going to break down 3 very popular commercial asset classes, and I'm going to show you on the whiteboard the 6 metrics that I typically look at when I'm investing in commercial properties. And I'm going to explain to you what I believe is the high, medium, or low application for each 6 of these metrics. The 3 asset classes that we'll look at, they're warehousing, medical, and childcare. So let's start with yield. So in my opinion, when we're looking at warehousing, particularly in places like Southeast Queensland, we're still getting relatively high yields. So what I mean by high yields, we can still get opportunities where you can get 6% net yield across a lot of suburbs in the Southeast Queensland region. When we're looking at medical centers, because medical centers are so high in demand right now, we see massive yield compression. So for a good medical center with a long-term lease in place, we're seeing them trading anywhere between 4.5% to 5.5%. So I think yields are medium. Childcare centers are similar. Childcare centers with long-term leases are still getting massive yield compression as well. The average yield that I'm seeing for childcare centers on the eastern seaboard is around that sort of 5 to 5.5% net yield. So I dedicated medium in terms of yield. So warehouse wins in terms of yield. Let's talk about growth. Now, in terms of growth, we've seen massive growth from warehousing assets in the last sort of 5 years, pretty much since COVID. Since COVID changed behavior across the entire world. We rely more on e-commerce, we rely on more logistics facilities to service the population growth in Australia. So we're still experiencing very high growth in the logistics and warehousing space. In terms of medical, we're probably looking at a medium growth rate for medical. The only reason is because you're already buying medical centers at a pretty compressed yield. I can't see yield compression go any further, because otherwise you're going to start looking at sort of negative cash flows for a lot of these medical centers. So I think medical centers, we're going to get sort of medium growth rate. And then in terms of childcare centers, we're going to experience low growth rate going forward, because a lot of these childcare centers are typically on 15-year leases and on CPI increases. There's no market review, there's hardly any market review during the midterm for a lot of these childcare centers. So you're not going to get massive growth rates over the next 10 to 15 years. The growth rate will be in line pretty much with the rental increases. And also, I can't see any further yield compression in a lot of these childcare centers. Again, otherwise you're going to start getting into negative cash flow territory. So again, warehousing wins in that category. Let's talk about stability. So warehousing stability, I give it a medium rating because you are still prone to some vacancies here and there. In any given market, the vacancy rate for industrial properties right now in Australia is sort of between that 2 to 4%. Still historically low, but vacancy rates are starting to creep up a little bit now. So in terms of stability, medium. Medical, stability is high. The reason for that is it costs a lot of money to fit out a premises for a medical center. So there's a lot of capex and investment that goes into the fit out. So once these medical centers move in, they typically stay there for a long period of time, because for them to relocate to another place, it's going to cost them a lot of money to relocate. So stability is high, and childcare centers as well is quite high, because childcares are a specialized facility. It requires very strict approval process, and fit outs and construction and development for a childcare center is also very expensive as well. So typically when a childcare center is completed, they sign 10, 15, 20-year leases. They're not going anywhere. So stability is high. So medical centers and childcare centers win in this category. Let's talk about flexibility, which I think is very, very important. In terms of warehousing, flexibility is high because basically it's 4 walls, a roof, and a roller shutter door. There's a lot of flexibility there. You can lease it out to 1 tenant, 2 tenants, 3 tenants. There's a lot of different applications that you could potentially apply to a warehousing facility. Whereas medical centers have a medium flexibility because typical medical centers, they fall under an office or retail asset. So for example, if you're a medical center in a shopping district, you're typically renting a retail space. So there's a medium level of flexibility there. Or maybe you're on a level 1, level 2 sort of an office building, or maybe higher up. Again, there's a medium flexibility there, what you could do with the space if the medical center does move out. But in terms of childcare, flexibility is very, very low because it is highly specialized. Childcare center very rarely can be retrofitted for any other usages. So childcare center is very low in terms of flexibility. So warehousing wins in terms of flexibility in this category. The next category is risk. So what does risk mean? So risk is not just market risk, but just inherited risk for the asset type. So let me explain. Warehousing has typically low risk because it doesn't cost a lot to fit out a warehouse, and also there's a lot of flexibility, and also with the growth in population, there's more demand for warehousing as well. Typically for warehousing, you don't have massive make good liability. So for example, if a tenant goes broke, they go bust, typically you can keep all their inventory and you sell them off and to recover costs. The fit out is typically not that expensive, right? Not that expensive to make good. When it comes to medical risk, similarly, what happens if the medical center does go broke or they decide to pack up and leave? Again, their fit out facility is semi-specialized. You can potentially lease it out to another medical facility, maybe from a GP to a dentist, or maybe to a physio, to a chiro. So there's some flexibility there. So the risk component is medium, but in terms of childcare centers, from my opinion, risk is very high. The reason for that is if the childcare center goes broke for whatever reason, or if the government changes their legislation and they're not subsidizing childcare anymore, the childcare industry will just basically fall over overnight. So I think childcare centers is pretty high risk, and if the childcare center does move out, the make good cost is very high for a childcare center, and the typical security that a childcare center provides, 3 to 6 months bond, is nothing compared to the potential demolition of make good that's required for a childcare center. So childcare centers, I deem it to be pretty high risk from a functionality perspective. And in terms of value add, okay, this is very important because you want to be able to add value to your property consistently. With a warehouse, I think it's pretty high because there's a lot of things that you can do to a warehouse. Right? You can refurbish it, you can subdivide it, you can maybe extend it, you can potentially even change the usage from maybe warehousing to large format retail, depending on the zoning, things like that. So in terms of value add opportunities, I think it's pretty high. For a medical center, I think it's medium. The status, I would probably say, is medium. The chance of you adding significant value to the asset, I think is medium because again, you're pretty constricted in terms of what you can do. And then in terms of childcare centers, very low value add opportunity because typically developers who develop childcare centers, they've already maxed out the highest best use for that particular property. For example, there's outdoor space and indoor space. Most businesses don't require a lot of outdoor space. Childcare centers are probably only few businesses that require substantial outdoor space. So they've already maximized the outdoor space as well. So developers already maximize the highest and best use for childcare centers. So there's very little further value add opportunities for childcare centers. So when you kind of break down these 3 asset classes and we actually really understand the ins and outs of these asset classes, it becomes really, really clear what's going to give you the best performance over a long period of time. In my opinion, I still believe warehousing or logistics over a long period of time outweighs medical centers and childcare centers because of all these factors factored in. Now, if you want to learn more about different types of commercial asset classes and how they perform against each other, then definitely hit the subscribe button. And if you like this video, definitely give me a thumbs up. I'll see you in the next video.